Okay, grade 3 students. This is our reading passage for this week. And I'll zoom in a little bit to make it a bit easier to read. The comprehension, the genre, the type of reading is it's a fantasy, a story about invented characters who could not exist in real life. And they want you to monitor your comprehension. That is, you need to check your understanding as you read along. Um, Something they want you to practice during this reading passage is making judgments. And if we were in class, we would use a judgment chart. We're not in class. And this is what we're reading to find out. How would you describe Charlotte's personality? Okay, and you can see there's a spider involved with this reading passage, and it is based on a very popular book called Charlotte's Web, and this is one of the covers that you might see if you were to look at look up Charlotte's Web on the internet. Written by E.B. White quite a long time ago, and it is an award-winning book. And this is Charlotte. This is the pig. And this is one of the sheep and one of the geese. And it's sort of a farmer's tradition is that they would pick one pig and they would feed it from spring and keep feeding it over summer and keep feeding it until Thanksgiving. And then they would slaughter the pig and it would be part of the Thanksgiving meal. So if the pig looks a little bit worried, this is Wilbur the pig. That's probably why. Okay, so Wilbur's Boast. And we'll just flip to the next page. Or maybe we won't. Oh, I pressed the wrong button. Mr. V. Okay, so this is what the full page looks like, but I'm going to zoom it so you can see it a bit better. A spider's web is stronger than it looks. Although it is made of thin, delicate strands, the web is not easily broken. However, a web gets torn every day by the insects that kick around in it, and a spider must rebuild it when it gets full of holes. Charlotte, the spider, liked to do her weaving during the late afternoon, and Fern liked to sit nearby and watch. One afternoon, she heard a most interesting conversation and witnessed a strange event. Oops. You have awfully hairy legs, Charlotte, said Wilbur, as the spider busily worked at her task. My legs are hairy for a good reason, replied Charlotte. Furthermore, each leg of mine has 7 sections. The coxa, the trochanter, the femur, the patella, the tibia, the metatarsus, and the tarsus. Wilbur sat bolt upright. You're kidding, he said. No, I'm not either. Say those names again. I didn't catch them the first time. The coxa, the trochanter, the femur, the patella, the tibia, the metatarsus, and tarsus. Goodness, said Wilbur, looking down at his own chubby legs. I don't think my legs have 7 sections. He's probably right about that. Does Wilbur's comments about Charlotte's leg show good manners? Not really. He could have said, well, that's interesting. But he just said, what? What are you talking about? Can you even say those again? I mean, he is a little bit of a little bit rude. Not too rude, though. All right, let's go to the next page. So I'll show you the full page. And this is just an illustration. And here you can see the spider web. And this illustration is the same as from the original book. And the pig chatting with the spider. Okay, so again, this is not something that really happens, but in this story, it does. And it's a very peaceful farm. I wouldn't mind being on a farm like this right about now. Okay, we get to the next page. Let's just scroll that up. Well, said Charlotte, you and I lead different lives. You don't have to spin a web. That takes real legwork. I could spin a web if I tried, said Wilbur, boasting. I've just never tried. Oh, I'm right, he was rude. Let's see you do it, said Charlotte. Fern chuckled softly. Fern is the little girl in the story, and her eyes grew wide with love for the pig. Like the pig isn't being rude on purpose, but the pig actually thinks, oh, I could probably spin a web. I just never tried it. Okay, so the pig's not trying to be rude. It just comes out that way. Okay, replied Wilbur. You coach me and I'll spin one. It must be a lot of fun to spin a web. How do I start? Take a deep breath, said Charlotte, smiling. Wilbur breathed deeply. Now climb to the highest place you can get to, like this. Charlotte raced up to the top of the doorway. Wilbur scrambled to the top of the manure pile. The manure pile is the poo pile. There's no cute way of saying it. That's what it is. Very good, said Charlotte. Now make an attachment with your spinnerets, hurl yourself into space, and let out a drag line as you go down. Now, I just happen to know that spinnerets and drag lines are words that you use about spiders building their spider's web. So they're not new to me, but they might be very new to you. And I think that Wilbur is going to be confused by this. Wilbur hesitated a moment, then jumped out into the air. He glanced hastily behind to see if a piece of rope was following to check his fall, but nothing seemed to be happening in his rear. And the next thing he knew, he landed with a thump. Hump! He grunted. So here Wilbur becomes a bit more likable because he does leap into the air and he does think a spider's web is going to come out the backside of him. And then he's kind of surprised when it doesn't. And yeah. Charlotte laughed so hard her web began to sway. What did I do wrong? Asked the pig when he recovered from his bump. Nothing, said Charlotte. It was a very nice try. I think I'll try again, said Wilbur cheerfully. I believe what I need is a little piece of string to hold me. Maybe a big piece of string there, Wilbur. Oh, the next page, a beautiful illustration. So here we have Fern. Here we have Wilbur. And Charlotte is up here. And it looks like the other animals are gathering because they probably have something to say, right? So let's go to the next page and let's zoom in a little bit for you. The pig walked out to his yard. You there, Templeton. There's a rat in this story, and the rat's name is Templeton. He called. The rat poked his head out from under the trough. A trough is like this wooden thing where they put all the food in, and then the pig would eat from the trough, and a rat would hang out by the trough because there's lots of extra food that falls on the ground. And so he's the local rat, but he's kind of mean, but he's also kind of not mean. The rat poked his head out from under the trough. Got a little piece of string I could borrow? Asked Wilbur. I need to spin a web. Yes, indeed, replied Templeton, who saved string. No trouble at all. Anything to oblige. Oblige means to help in this sentence. He crept down into his hole, pushed the goose egg out of the way, and returned with an old piece of dirty white string. Wilbur examined it. Oh, that's just the thing, he said. Oh, tie one end to my tail, will you, Templeton? Oopsie. Wilbur crouched low, with his thin, curly tail toward the rat. Templeton seized the string. He grabbed the string, passed it around the end of the pig's tail, and tied 2 half hitches, or knots. Charlotte watched in delight. Like Fern, she was truly fond. She truly liked Wilbur, whose smelly pen and stale food attracted the flies that she needed. So the spider needed the flies. And she was proud to see that he was not a quitter and was willing to try again to spin a web. I just understood what the title means, Wilbur's Boast. He boasts that he can spin a web, but he doesn't just realize right away, oh yeah, I'm a pig, I can't do it, I quit. He tries it, and then he's trying to try it again, and he's absolutely not a quitter, and he's willing to try again. And so Charlotte the spider and Fern the girl, they actually they like Wilbur the pig. All right, and this is Templeton, and there's Wilbur with the string tied to his tail, and Charlotte's up here observing. Okay, and you can see, I'll show you this. It's page 333. That's hard to get, but this is part of a novel that we read last year. So too bad that we didn't get a chance to this year. It's a beautiful book, and it's a classic. So there's Wilbur flying through the air, thinking he's going to spin a spider web. He's got a surprise coming. While the rat and the spider and the little girl watch, Wilbur climbed again to the top of the manure pile, full of energy and hope. Everybody watch, he cried. And summoning, and that means he's getting together all his strength, he threw himself into the air, head first. The string trailed behind him, but as he had neglected to fasten the other end to anything, it didn't really do any good, and Wilbur landed with a thud, crushed and hurt. Tears came to his eyes. Templeton grinned. Charlotte just sat quietly. After a bit, she spoke. You can't spin a web, Wilbur, and I advise you to put the idea out of your mind. You lack 2 things needed for spinning a web. What are they? Asked Wilbur, sadly. You lack a set of spinnerets, and you lack know-how. But cheer up. You don't need a web. Zuckerman supplies you with 3 big meals a day. Why should you worry about trapping food? Wilbur sighed. Oh, you're ever so much cleverer and brighter than I am, Charlotte. I guess I was just trying to show off. Serves me right. Templeton untied his string and took it back to his home. Charlotte returned to her weaving. You needn't feel too badly, Wilbur, she said. Not many creatures can spin webs. Even men aren't as good at it as spiders, although they think they're pretty good, and they'll try anything. Did you ever hear of the Queensboro Bridge? Wilbur shook his head. Is it a web? Sort of, replied Charlotte. But do you know how long it took men to build it? 8 whole years. My goodness, I would have starved to death waiting that long. I can make a web in a single evening. What do people catch in the Queensboro Bridge? Bugs? Asked Wilbur. No, said Charlotte. They don't catch anything. They just keep trotting back and forth across the bridge, thinking there is something better on the other side. If they'd hang head down at the top of the thing and wait quietly, maybe something good would come along. But no, with men, it's rush, 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 every minute. I'm glad I'm a sedentary spider. What does sedentary mean? Asked Wilbur. It means I sit still a good part of the time, and I don't go wandering all over creation. I know a good thing when I see it, and my web is a good thing. I stay put, and I wait for what comes. Gives me a chance to think. Well, I'm sort of sedentary myself, I guess, said the pig. I have to hang around here whether I want to or not. You know where I really like to be this evening? This should be interesting. Where? In a forest, looking for beech nuts and truffles and delectable roots, pushing leaves aside with my wonderful strong nose, searching and sniffing all along the ground, smelling, smelling, smelling. You smell just the way you are, remarked a lamb who had just walked in. I can smell you from here, but you're the smelliest creature in the place, but Wilbur hung his head. His eyes grew wet with tears. Charlotte noticed his embarrassment, and she spoke sharply to the lamb. Let Wilbur alone, she said. He has a perfect right to smell, considering his surroundings. You're no bundle of sweet peas yourself. Furthermore, you are interrupting a very pleasant conversation. What were we talking about, Wilbur, when we were so rudely interrupted? Oh, I don't remember, said Wilbur. It doesn't make any difference. Let's not talk any more for a while. Charlotte, I'm getting sleepy. You go ahead and finish fixing your web, and I'll just lie here and watch you. It is a lovely evening. Wilbur stretched out on his side. Twilight settled over Zuckerman's barn, and a feeling of peace. Make judgments. Do you think Charlotte really wants to make Wilbur feel better? Why or why not? I think Charlotte absolutely wants to make Wilbur feel better. Every time Wilbur starts to tear up, she has something good to say. And when that sheep told Wilbur that he was just a smelly pig, Charlotte really gave that lamb a good talking to. So Charlotte and Wilbur are actually very good friends, which is kind of strange to say about a spider and a pig. But again, this is a made-up story. Look at that. She spelled a word with her web. And I think she may have done it for this pig here. And you see, I mean, the graphics aren't amazing, yet this is a very popular book. Spin a Web with E.B. and Garth. Author, E.B. White. E.B. White had a farm very much like the one in this story. One day when E.B. was going to feed his pig, he began to feel sad. He did not want his pig to be killed. E.B. thought about how to save him. While he was thinking, he saw a big spider spinning a web. Soon, E.B. was spinning the novel, Charlotte's Web. Other books by E.B. White include Stuart Little and The Trumpet of the Swan. I've read Stuart Little, but not the other one. Illustrator Garth Williams. Garth Williams has said that Charlotte's Web was one of his favorite books to illustrate. Garth did the pictures while he was living on a farm. He based his illustrations on what he saw around him. He drew the animals over and over again until they seemed to look like people. So what I like is this part that he draws over and over again until he gets the look that he wants. I'm trying to convince people who don't think that they are artists, that they are artists. And it's just a matter of doing things over and over again. And then you become a great artist. Author's purpose. What was E.B. White's main purpose for writing? Oh boy, I've read the whole book, so it's difficult for me to say. Explain how you can tell. Just from this reading passage, I think he's writing about different creatures that can be friends. And I think that E.B. White is saying that a spider and pig, yes, they're completely different, but they live on the same farm. And even though they're different, in this case, they actually talk to each other and they get to know each other. And Charlotte is this kind, thoughtful spider. And Wilbur is a bit of an adventurous, maybe not too smart, but very kind and thoughtful pig. And they've become friends. So I think the author's purpose is to entertain me with a story about two different characters and how they can have a friendship. And it just also makes me think about different people that I have friendships with. So let's see, is that the last page? Summarize. Think and compare. You know what? If you would like to answer these questions, well, you can't do number 5 because we don't have Max the Amazing Hamster. Let's quickly do them right now. Think about Wilbur's boasting and his attempts to spin a web. Were these attempts smart? No, they weren't. But they were also harmless. He wasn't boasting like bragging. He was boasting like, if you teach me how to do it, I can do it too. All right? And that's sort of the tone that he has. Why would you think Charlotte tells Wilbur how to spin a web? Well, I think Charlotte understands that Wilbur thinks that like everyone's just kind of the same, and that as long as he gets instructions, that he can do it. And Wilbur will try. And then the more he tries, that's how he's going to learn that he won't be able to spin a web. And then she tells him, yeah, you need spinnerets and whatnot. If you were to meet Charlotte, what questions would you ask her about the meaning of friendship? This is something I would actually like you to do, is if you were to meet Charlotte, what questions would you ask her about the meaning of friendship? Why do you think that Charlotte says humans rush around too much? Okay, I'll be able to tell which grade 3 students got through this video because they're going to answer these 2 questions, 3 and 4. All right, guys, This is an introduction to an amazing book that you're going to read at some point. And I'm done reading this section of the book for you. I look forward to reading your responses to questions 3 and 4. All right, toodles.